As of this recording, RFK Jr. is currently in confirmation hearings for his position. And we all know that he partnered up with President Trump to Maha, to make America healthy again. And, we're going to be talking about that, about how to actually make America healthy again. So, welcome back, y'all. This is the podcast for the Grains and Grit YouTube channel, but it's more unfiltered, unedited with this podcast. We're going to kind of be getting deeper, and where basically I just sit down and press record and share my thoughts with you. So, in case you've been living under a rock for the past several months. President Trump partnered up with Robert Kennedy Jr. Back whenever he was running for president, and with RFK Jr. He is definitely on a mission to make America healthy again. And as of right now, he's going through Senate confirmations. He has not actually been confirmed for his position in the federal government. So while I am excited about this. I have been following RFK Jr. for several years, and while I certainly disagree with him on some things, one of the big things that I agree with him on is the fact, especially when it comes to our health, that we should have decisions, that we need to have better conversations, and to not just be bullied or to bow down to whatever certain thing the government says when it comes to our health, because as you may have noticed, Americans are not exactly the healthiest people on the planet. We have more money than probably any nation that is towards our healthcare, towards our medical system, and we are definitely not one of the healthiest countries by any means. We have higher obesity rates, and just in general, so many sicknesses and diseases. I believe are preventative. They're based on a lifestyle choices. Not all of them, but I would say many of them. And that is because for the past 100 years, we've been on a downhill slope when it comes to our food. Frankly, for me, I was born in the 80s, and so ultimately my childhood was in the 90s. And if you're a 90s kid like I am, oh, the processed foods that we ate, how we are still alive these days, I don't even know. But we're talking the typical sugary cereals, hamburger helper, just all of those typical processed foods. And I'm not saying this to bash my parents. I mean, I honestly believe that my mother truly believed that she was feeding us well. And I know that she loved me. So this is not bashing any parents raising kids in the 90s, because also, frankly, we didn't know the things back then that we certainly know now, mainly thanks to the internet. So nowadays, we have more information about GMOs. We have more information about organic and non organic foods. We have more information about things like vaccines, diabetes and cancer, and so much information is now available. And while it can be confusing, um, we're now just going to discuss my thoughts on Maha, what I believe should be done. Now, first of all, one thing that I want to quote Joel Salatin on, or reference him. If you don't know Joel Salatin, you should. He's awesome and I love him. He's a farmer in Virginia and wonderful, wonderful person. But I recently listened to a podcast of his a few months ago where they were talking about this. And one great point he made was that we certainly do not need a nanny state. We do not need the government to come in and then legally mandate, oh, you can eat this, you can't eat that. Because frankly, I think the ultimate freedom is people can choose what to put in their bodies as adults. If you want to sit around and drink Mountain Dew all day and stuff your face with candy, hey, that's your prerogative. You're an adult. That's your right if you want to do that. Just on the flip side, if someone chooses to live more of a healthy lifestyle and they want to only buy straight from the farmer or all organic produce or whatever that is, they should have that right as well. And so here here are just my thoughts. First of all, one thing that I am grateful to see, and again, I say this because I think no matter where you land on the political spectrum, whether you love or hate Trump, whether you love or hate RFK Jr., it really doesn't matter, because I think we can all agree. that something's wrong with the American diet. Something is wrong with our health. And um, and so I think we can all start there. And I think the first thing that we need to do is, first of all, we need to be able to have these conversations. We need to be able to sit down and have these open conversations with our doctors, with our legislatures, with our friends, with our family, without ripping each other's throats out. We can typically really let emotion get in the way, and then it's just all pure emotion, and you just react, or you may react because you are on one side of the political spectrum and someone else is on the other side, and because these type of issues have become so political, you may just react out of emotion, and we need to set that aside and actually have logical, reasonable, scientific type discussions and even debate concerning these issues. So, for example, let's approach, red 40 dye is possibly causing issues. And maybe, and I think if you are a doctor out there and a parent comes to you, especially with in regards to their child, and said, "Hey, I've noticed this," I encourage you, don't scoff at them like you just being a doctor makes you know more than them. I mean, really truly listen to them, especially I've heard so many parents talk about, yeah, my kid was really hyperactive and their behavioral issues, and then they made sure that not to feed them foods with red dye 40, or maybe they backed off on the sugar, or they changed something in their child's diet and they saw improvement. And that's something that we need to consider. That don't think that they're crazy, or maybe there isn't something to that. Let us open up these conversations and debate. And so that's one thing that I am looking forward and hoping to see more of. And it's about anything. I mean, we're talking vaccines, which can definitely be a very polarizing issue. I mean, we're talking emotions run very high when it comes to vaccines, but we need to be able to have these conversations without just name calling, without all these logical fallacies, without attacking the messenger, without just because someone dares question vaccines to immediately brush them off and say, "You're just anti-vax, anti-science." That's not anti-science. Science in and of itself should be asking questions and testing these theories. That's science, to be always questioning things and then to be researching it out, and then let's find this out. And so I'm hoping, I think that is one thing that we need to start doing, is allowing ourselves to have these uncomfortable conversations, to be having these debates, to be able to question and ask your doctor questions without feeling bullied by your doctor. And I can say this from a firsthand experience. I have definitely dealt with doctors with God complexes. And again, I'm not bashing doctors. We certainly need doctors for certain situations, but it is also a fact that medical doctors are taught very, very, very embarrassingly little nutrition in medical school. They are mainly taught to write prescriptions and to prescribe drugs. And that's a fact. And again, I'm not saying they're horrible people. I'm pretty sure that they went in with very good intentions, and I think many of them do have good intentions. But as a doctor, I've definitely had my fair share where they have a God complex. And if you dare ask a question, or maybe refuse something that they are offering, they get really angry with you. And that can be very intimidating for certain people. I've kind of learned to just deal with it and to just come in there and not back down on my stances. But not everybody does that. And we need to be able to do that. People need to be able to have those conversations. And so I think that's the first step, conversations. The second step with making America healthy, and I would say any Western country, this is very similar. And the second thing is definitely education. We need to educate people. Again, I do not believe that we need to be telling people what they can and cannot do, because people are going to choose what they can and cannot do, especially when it comes to their food. Okay, especially when it comes to their food, people do not like you telling them what they can and cannot eat. You can talk to them about it. And I think education is a big one. And this is a main thing that I do on my YouTube channel. is all about grains. I mean, just this one area. There's so many areas when it comes to our food, but just this one area with bread, with grains, it's astounding how we don't know anymore. We have lost knowledge that our ancestors for thousands of years have known. And specifically with bread, many people think that bread is not good, that we should not be having grains, but they don't know the whole picture. And this is something that I wish I could scream from the rooftops and educate everyone, because grains for thousands of years and still around the world, in many places, grains are a staple food for people. It looks different no matter where you go. Mexico, there is corn, and in Asia, it is things like rice, and here in America, it is wheat. And same with Europe, wheat. But there's also, you have rye, and then you have barley, and so many of these different type of grains. But every culture has some sort of grains in their diet that is a huge staple. And we have lost this fact. And this is an excellent example of where we really need to educate people and tell them, no, no, no. See, the bread you see in the store, the flour in the store, that's not real. Okay, that's not real bread. That's not real food. This is real food, and it comes from whenever you actually mill the grains yourself, bake it at home. So educating people on these facts, educating people also how to be cooking, how to cook from scratch, how to actually be using ingredients to make food, not just going out to eat and not just pulling things from a box. And so we've really lost this, and I would say that this is something that the French still seem to have in France. They very much teach, even in elementary school, they teach students, how to be eating, how to prepare food, how to be cooking, what foods pair well with each other. There's just, it's more of the French culture. It's actually very fascinating as far as how they eat. And yeah, they have fast food, and yes, they have obese people in France. I'm not saying it's a perfect system, but I would say overall, they definitely are educated from a young age, and it is a lot cultural based, as well as in their how they just educate their children. Um, as far as their relationship to food and real food, they still really like to eat seasonally, where here in America we are used to eating strawberries year round, but to the French, they know that, hey, there's one time of year that the strawberries are the best, and that's when we want them. We don't want them year round. We want them when they're at their peak and when they're their best. So I would say that's a big difference, is we need to kind of educate ourselves of what does it mean to actually eat real food again? What is real food? And of course, here on this channel, I teach all about real whole grains from a biblical perspective. So that means that I go to the Bible to determine what is real food. And we should be eating food that God created as food, as close to the way that He should be eating it as possible. And don't let anything become an addiction. And as far as food goes, and even non-Christians can see this. And I've watched documentaries where it's not Christian based, and how they even agree. Look, if it was made in a lab, then it takes a lab to process it. If it was created in a garden or something natural, then that's something that my body can eat. And whether you're carnivore, keto, anti bread, fully for grains, I think this is something that we can agree with, is that, things that come out of a lab, maybe not a good idea, okay, to have. And so, again, all of this, I just bring it back to education. We need to educate ourselves again and reclaim the lost arts that we have lost. There was a time, again, for thousands of years, up until like the Industrial Revolution. And this is probably another podcast that I would like to do, is the whole like history of our food system, because it's fascinating. Like, how did we get to where we're at when for thousands of years it has been something different? Um, and up until the Industrial Revolution, people, the way to get butter was either you had a cow or you knew a farmer with a cow who milked said cows and would churn that milk to create butter, and then you were getting that butter and it was fresh. It wasn't didn't have preservatives in it. It wasn't from these huge, massive dairies, things like that. It used to be that's how you got milk. And it used to be that if you wanted bread, that you would have to get some grains. Most likely, maybe you grew them yourself. Then you went to a local miller and they would mill those grains into flour and you would bake the bread from home. If you wanted certain vegetables, you probably had a vegetable garden or you knew someone with a vegetable garden. You knew the farmer. And for thousands of years, that's how we got food, is it was basically farm to table in some capacity. Since the Industrial Revolution, that has changed. Now we have these factory farms where it's these huge beef farms or these huge dairy farms. We're actually in between two massive dairy farms, reek to high heaven when you pass by. But that's now where most people get their milk from. And our system has changed. Our food system has changed. We have a lot of processed food, and so we've lost the knowledge of, first of all, how to cook from just ingredients and not processed foods. How do we bake bread? How do we ferment? How do we make sauerkraut? How do we make cheese? How do we make jams and jellies? How do we do these things? And I'm not saying that you should be making every single thing from scratch. Start small. Start with one thing at a time, and then just build your skills from there. So, but ultimately, we've lost these skills because we're used to now just go down to the grocery store, pick it up, or go to a restaurant, go to fast food where they're preparing the food, and how so many people are so far removed from their food. And that's another reason why we're in the state that we're in. And part of making America healthy again is to be reconnected with our food. Where does it come from? Who is growing it? How was that cow or chicken or whatever? How was that raised? How was this food grown? Where does it come from? And these are things that I'm hoping we can start seeing a change. There's so much regulation, and I understand in some ways why we have regulation. And in other ways, it really hurts the smaller farmers. It's more for the big ag. It's more helpful for them and hurts small farms. And so these are all these conversations that I believe that we really need to make. So, and ultimately, if I was to make America healthy again, I would be stressing that everyone gets a grain mill back in their home. It used to be everyone had it. The Bible refers to in the Old Testament, I believe it's in Deuteronomy or Leviticus, I'd have to find it, but where it talks about that to take a pledge, that you are not allowed to take the upper millstone as a pledge, like for a debt or something like that. You're not allowed to take it because you would be taking their life. The millstone was life. The fact that people could mill their own grains, that was seen as life. I mean, a law that God gave in the Bible, you can't take the millstone as pledge. You will be taking his life. And so, yes, I do believe that everyone should get a grain mill, whether you are gluten free or not. There are so many grains out there, even that are gluten free grains, that you can be having. And I think that is one way, is to be getting our staff of life back, our grains back. But that starts with education. And it is a huge uphill battle. But that's why I've started my YouTube channel, Grains and Grit. And I love, 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 love when I hear testimonies from all of y'all of how you started, maybe because you heard me or Sue Becker or someone else, and then you started telling others about it, and other people started milling. And that's really how we're going to start making America healthy again, is the change starts with you. The change begins with you. You start changing. Other people are going to see that you're doing better. Maybe you're losing weight, maybe you're getting healthier, maybe you get more energy. There's various levels to this. And then people start asking, "Hey, what are you doing?" And then you can tell them. And I think that's how it's going to start, is it starts with you. And even if you think you don't, I'm just one little person, what difference can I make? Trust me, you can make a difference. One person shared with me Sue Becker's Do Not Eat the Bread of Idleness CD over a decade ago. And that's how we started milling grains. And then here I am. These people do not have a YouTube channel. I have no idea if they ever converted anyone else to milling their own grains, but they converted me. And God has given me this platform here on YouTube and through this podcast. And I'm able to tell so many other people because that one person told me. And I may have a larger impact than they do, but without them, y'all wouldn't be impacted. So don't ever think that you can't make a difference. So those are my thoughts, y'all. Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts of making America healthy again. So again, recap: we don't need a nanny state. We really need to be able to have these open conversations. With our doctors, friends, family, with our communities. We need to be able to have these conversations without biting each other's heads off. We need to have these conversations in love and understanding and logic and facts. And then also, we need to be reclaiming the lost skills that we have lost, and start with one, milling your grains, baking bread. That's one way. And then you're going to start, and you just be aware because you may end up in the woods like me with a lot of chickens. I'm just saying. But we all have to start somewhere. And hopefully this is helpful and encouragement to you to just start with yourself with making America healthy again. And I think we might be on a good path to at least start making a little bit of a wave, a little bit of a difference, but it is going to take some time. So there you go, y'all. I hope y'all have a wonderful day, and I will talk to y'all again soon.